I think we'll go ahead and get started with our presentations. I just want to, of course, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're at in the part of the country. And welcome to our kickoff session, The Road Home. Patients share their discovery to a better quality of care. I'm Stephanie Hall, and I'm the Quality Improvement Director for the ESRD National Coordinating Center. I think you're going to really enjoy and get a lot out of our first session today. We are joined by two couples that are going to give us a real-time demonstration on how a home dialysis therapy allows patients to take charge of their care. First, we have Jimmy and Dawn Bates. The Dubuque, Iowa couple has been married for 12 years. They have 5 children and 13 grandchildren. Jimmy treats with home hemodialysis, and Dawn is his care partner. They began their home dialysis journey in 2009 and appreciate the freedom to travel and spend time with family that the therapy allows. According to Jimmy and Dawn, the therapy allows him to engage in treatments while being with family and friends. The couple love to travel. In fact, they currently are on the road today in talking with patients in Chicago about the benefits of home dialysis. So I think I'm going to, again, thank you, Jimmy and Dawn, for being here, and good morning. Melissa, I think you're going to go ahead and turn off the PowerPoint at this time so that we switch the camera over to Jimmy and Dawn. Okay, great. So Jimmy and Dawn, can you go ahead and take it away? Can you describe and take us through the process of setting up your treatment?
Absolutely. So a lot of times, most of the time, Jimmy sets up the machine himself. Now he's already, because we're traveling, we have hanging bags. He's got to put one more up. Why don't you do that?
Yep.
But he gets 25 liters per treatment of dialysate. So when we travel, we have the hanging bags. When we're at home, we have a pure flow that will make a big batch of 60 liters, and that gets us 2 treatments out of there. So we don't have to mess with the pure flow nearly as often as we do when we're traveling. It's a lot of work, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it. So when you're done with that, you want to turn on the machine.
Sure.
So Dawn, for the
Yes.
folks who don't know, can you tell them where you're at right now? Are you in your RV?
We are in our RV. We are in Evergreen Park, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. It's very cold here today. I think it's in the 30s, but it's supposed to be in the 70s by the weekend, but we'll be gone by then. Oh, that's fine. We're headed to Tennessee from there, and then we're headed to Florida. So, very excited. So what he's doing now is he's getting the cartridge ready to get primed. And the nice thing about doing home hemo is that everything comes prepackaged. So all he has to do is take off the tabs and tighten the lines before he inserts it. And I'm going to turn the computer so that you can see better. When he goes to do that.
So Dawn, since you travel so much and you use the RV, do you have a problem with kind of keeping supplies, or how do you manage that?
No, actually, it's we've been very fortunate in the aspect that when we decide we're going to go on a trip, what we do is we set up. We talk to the nurse, the home dialysis nurse, and we set up travel orders. And so we usually carry about 2 weeks worth of supplies with us at one time. We have all of our ancillary supplies with us. Any labs, like over the summer, we were on the road for 3 months, traveled through 22 states in our camper. And so we had 3 months of ancillary supplies. We set up telehealth appointments So he didn't miss any appointments with his nephrologist, which is so important. And then we just picked up supplies every 2 weeks at different destinations, whether it was a friend's house or another dialysis clinic along the way, but have not had any issues whatsoever.
Wonderful. So just a little bit of pre-planning for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Preparation is key. Preparation is key. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it on? Is the machine on? Okay.
So what's Jimmy doing over there right now?
Jimmy just, they can't see, honey.
There you go.
Okay. He just inserted the cartridge, and I apologize for the backlight. Trying to make sure that we have enough light in here to see, but he inserted the cartridge in here just like a cassette. It would just slide in, and then you connect the pressure pod here, straighten out your lines, because that'll make it easier for later when we connect him. And then he's a little shaky with let me get my gloves, with spiking the bag. So there's a lot of teamwork. That's the nice thing about being a couple, is that, he doesn't have to do it by himself. We're a team.
Yeah, and Dawn, I was just going to ask you what role do you play and Jimmy plays as far as setting up the machine and through the treatment process?
Well, and that also depends on the day, because if it's snowing and cold outside, Stephanie, I'll tell you what, I don't have a problem telling him I'll set up his machine if he goes to the grocery store for me.
Yeah.
So I spike the saline, and now I just hit go. And it'll take 23 minutes to prime the machine. And while the machine is priming, at that point, what we do is we connect the warmer lines. And because he has neuropathy, he has a hard time feeling his hands. So I usually help out with this.
Yeah. And then during that time, I go and clean my arm up and get it ready to be cannulated.
Yep.
Okay. So Jimmy, I have a question for you while Dawn is working on the machine.
Sure.
Can you share with us why you chose home hemodialysis?
Well, at first I was kind of leery about it because it's like, well, I'm better off here in center where the nurses and everything are, and but Dawn says just try it, try experience the difference, and I did, and it did make a big difference. I knew it the first time I tried it. So
good.
That's why I decided to do that, is because I felt so much better.
Right. And can you share with everybody how frequently do you do your home hemodialysis?
I do it every day.
Okay. Yep.
Most people don't.
Most people don't do it every day. I can take a day off if I need to. Like usually that's travel. Like if it's a travel day and we have to drive quite a distance, I'll do the driving. But then I'll take that day off. But yeah.
So does that, since you dialyze every day, does that give you any little extra freedom with your diet restrictions?
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can pretty much eat anything I want. And I can drink a little bit more too, because we dialyze every day. It keeps me more level.
Kind of more of a steady level of labs, right? Right.
Yeah.
Great. And while Don's still over there, Jimmy, I'll kind of have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
How was the process, and can you kind of talk us through about learning how to self-cannulate, or does Dawn help you with that, or you both learn? Are you pretty proficient, either one of you, in cannulating?
Dawn is awesome. She's been cannulating me since 2009. I've never had an infection, never had an infiltration since then. So she's pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, it's great.
Yeah, it is. I'm
Yeah.
very lucky.
Great. Are you able to cannulate yourself if needed?
Where my sites are clear down
Oh,
here.
okay.
So it's a little tricky to get to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. And how long did it take Dawn to become proficient? She got trained, I assume, in center at in the home
Yeah.
therapy department
Yep.
initially?
Yeah. We did training for 5 weeks.
Wow. Okay. Good. Good. And Dawn, how are you doing over there?
I'm doing well. I am just about set. There we
Wonderful.
go. There we go. So,
And what's the machine doing now, Dawn?
the machine is priming and it'll take 23 minutes for it to fully prime and be ready for uh to snap and tap. You know, when it's done, then we'll snap and tap and get all the air out of the lines, burp these lines, and then he'll be ready. It'll be ready to we'll connect to the dialysate and the waistline, which in a camper, we either go and dump it down through the bathroom sink, or I have a jug that sits in the shower
Okay.
that holds 7 gallons. So it's just enough.
Great. So, um, well, I talked a little bit. Jimmy, I'm going to go back to you just for another question. What
Sure.
do you see as some of the benefits of doing a home treatment?
I feel better
Hmm.
on the little machine, and it's portable, so I can take it with me if we want to go visit the grandkids or our kids out of town. We can do it in a hotel or
Travel
whatever.
22 states.
Yeah, we traveled 22 states this year. Got to go all over the east side of the country, so it was pretty awesome.
Hmm.
And you got to get off all of your blood pressure meds.
Yeah, I don't have any blood pressure meds anymore, and I haven't had those since 2009.
Wow. Wow. Great.
Yeah.
So I hear a lot of good benefits. It's potentially, the blood pressure pills
Yeah.
reduction, or maybe getting off a little more dietary freedom. Um, Jimmy, you started in center initially with your dialysis.
Sure did in 2008.
So you were there just a year basically then before deciding to do a home
Yeah,
therapy.
yeah. And I was leery about doing it at first, but Dawn says just give it a try. Just try the little machine and see if it feels any different, see if you feel any better. And I did. So
That's great. And here, 2022, so
I,
and
I
still going.
know.
That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful.
You have had a trip.
Yeah, I've had a transplant in there too. 2012, I had a transplant, and it lasted for 5 years. One
Mhm.
awesome year, I felt like a kid again. I had so much energy. It was great. But then, I started losing a lot of weight and um, got really sickly. Ended up with Legionella pneumonia, and
Ah,
ended up on ECMO.
Mm-hmm.
okay. Well, great. I think just to keep our eyes on the time frame, this has been great, Don and Jimmy. Wonderful information. We will get some questions, but I do want to give Gary and Yolanda a little bit of time too to
Gotcha.
discuss their journey. So I am going to go on over and welcome both of them. So thank you
All
very
right.
much. And to everybody on the call, we will please submit any questions in the chat. And I believe at the end, before we take a little short break, we'll have time to answer any questions that you have submitted in there.
Yeah, I would
Uh,
like if we have time, I would like to share the because space is a big thing
yes.
too, storage. So if we have time, I would love to be able to show that.
Okay.
All right.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah. So we're going to go ahead. I want to introduce our next couple, Gary and Yolanda Moore. Gary and Yolanda live in Anchorage, Alaska. Gary treats with peritoneal dialysis, and Yolanda is his care partner. Life for the Moore family dramatically changed in 2012. Gary was taken to the hospital where he was told he had a heart attack, 3 strokes, and his kidneys had failed. Gary started on in-center hemodialysis, but switched to PD after 3 months. Gary currently works as a rigger, which means he makes wire ropes and cables. Yolanda is a stay-at-home grandmother and bookkeeper. In her free time, they enjoy reading and spending time with their family. Yolanda and Gary have been married for 32 years. They have 7 children, 3 biological, 4 adopted, and they have 11 grandchildren. So welcome, Gary and Yolanda. We are so happy you are here today to share your story. So can you start us off and describe and take us through the process of setting up for your treatment?
Okay. Well, one, we've been married now 35 years.
Oh,
We just made 35 years. But for the most part, we have recently changed. Gary has recently changed over to the Baxter machine. However, he was Fresenius, where during Fresenius, I helped with setting up a lot of the time, a lot in injecting his lines and stuff like that. But since we've gone over to the Baxter, we had a quick transition into it. So he, for the most part, does all the setting up and everything that goes to the Baxter machine. So he handles all that himself for the most part, unless he ended up needing antibiotics or something. But so I'm going to let him explain to you how he goes about the process of doing that.
great.
Hi. Well, before I start, I just want to emphasize routine. Okay. Normally, when I start this, I start it at the same time every day, roughly the same time every day. And right now, the news isn't on, so I might be just a little off. But first thing I do when I come downstairs is I power on my machine. The first thing I do when I come downstairs is I power on my machine. Then I go on ahead and hit the test. Okay, that part is done. I go on ahead and get to this screen here, and then I sit down and I take my blood pressure because that tells me which solutions I'm going to use. Now, for me, normally I use green solutions because my blood pressure normally runs between 130 and 140, and green has worked very well for me. So I'll take my blood pressure, get it when the machine prompts me. Actually, I kind of go a little bit ahead of the machine. I'll put in my blood pressure, put in my weight, my blood pressure. Put in all of my vitals into the machine. After that, I'll get the machine to a certain point. I'm going to go ahead and do that now.
Okay. So Gary, while you're doing that, Yolanda, what is your role during this treatment process?
Corral Sophia. Keep Sophia. I mean, every now and then we're not home, and so he'll do it with our granddaughter, because we do live with a 4-year-old granddaughter. So he has mastered teaching her also what is going on, and so she knows when to mask up and things like that, or she knows when to push buttons and things. But otherwise, when he's down here and I'm at home, I'm normally upstairs keeping her busy so she doesn't barge in the room, because she still is 4, so she'll just come barging in. So unless he brings her down with him so that she's going through the process and knows what to do and when to do it, then it's me upstairs normally keeping her busy so she doesn't barge in at the wrong time.
Yeah. So I notice a lot of supplies behind you also. Can you tell us a little bit about how you manage that?
Well, for the most part, the little boxes up top are mostly needles, tape, heparin, because you get the fibrin in your line, which is slow down the drain, things like that. There's boxes here, which are yellows, which is solution. There's needle syringes up in the top of the cabinet here, And then, but on an average, this is what our bedroom wall looks like. And then we have quite a bit in our closet and stuff. The biggest difference right now is that like I say, he was Fresenius and the boxes were smaller. So it didn't take up quite as much room. But now that they've switched over to the Baxter, it does take up a lot more space. We do have boxes in our closet. We have boxes on the wall. We have boxes in our hallway because so you have to have a nice size space to put them in, and preferably someplace close to you, because the boxes for this particular company are very heavy and very large. And so if you're on a weight limit, more or less, you'd have to transport them quite a ways. So you want to be able to have a space close to you, so that you don't have to transport the box. Because on average, these boxes can weigh somewhere around 25 to 30 pounds each. So it does take a lot of space.
How often do you receive your supplies?
Let me let him put his cassette in, and
Okay.
because he's gonna show you.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to
Please.
insert the cassette into the machine now. Okay. All right, that's done.
So Gary, are those color coded, very easily marked so that anybody could hook those up?
Yes, the cassette has 7 lines running off of it. On the right side is 4 lines. On the left side is 3 lines. Inside of this case here are little grooves that holds the lines in place. And then in the center of where the cassette actually goes, there is a mold that actually holds the cassette in place.
Mm-hmm.
So when you place this in here, you want to place that cassette right on that mold. Make sure that it sits in place. Make sure those lines are in the grooves. And then this should gently close.
Okay.
And that will put your cassette in place. When you insert this cassette, you want to make sure that your lines to your bags are closed. So your solution lines are all closed. Make sure that this line on your drain line is actually closed. And once again, I'm going to emphasize routine. Okay, this line will eventually go. This is the drain line. This will eventually go into the bathroom, into the commode, right here. I always run it last, but it's routine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, at this point, I'll move the machine forward. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the machine test the cassette. While the machine tests the cassette, then I'm going to open up my bags.
Okay.
And like I said, I'm going to emphasize again, routine. Once you get used to doing it a certain way, you should really stick with that way. So I'm going to open up my bag. And actually, I'm going to take them over there to open.
Okay. As far as our deliveries, your average delivery is supposed to be once a month. Like I say, they just switched over to Baxter, so they're working out some kinks. So, but you're supposed to get a delivery for supplies once a month, which is normally 4 weeks worth of supplies. So that means you're getting an average of maybe 60, 70 boxes. And then you got your boxes of masks. You have, you get masks, needles, soap, one of the biggest things we always have is, as you can see over there, all that is bleach wipes because we're forever wiping down surfaces and keeping things clean.
Yeah.
So, and when they bring the supplies in, they take the older supplies and make sure it's at the top and the newer supplies at the bottom. So you use it as it's expiring.
Yeah.
So, but
If
it's
I
supposed to be
can add-
once a month. And like I say, right now, they're trying to work out some kinks with the new system that's going on.
Sure. Yolanda or Jimmy, does that machine that you're using now, does it have any audio prompts for you when to set up or?
Gary's, yes.
Yes, it does. The machine will tell you pretty much where it's at, and it
Okay.
will talk to you. It'll tell you where you are in the setup process.
Okay.
But I normally go. Well, I normally know the process, so I go past that pretty fast.
Okay. And how
But it
often
does tell you
how often are you doing your dialysis treatment?
every night.
Every night. Okay. Good. Good. Can you guys, while we're waiting there, got a moment, can you tell us a little bit about the training that you received to do the peritoneal dialysis?
What did we do about 2 weeks?
When we first started.
When we first started, we did about 2 weeks of training.
Okay.
But, well, she did about 2 weeks of training. When we first started, I had just gotten out of the hospital. Well, it had been a while since I had been in the hospital, but I had been doing in-center dialysis, and it took a while for me to kind of get stable.
Mhm.
And so she learned it. She really locked it in first, and then she brought me along.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
he was still at the point where he was sleeping a lot. And so he slept through a lot of the training. So it took a lot. So, but as we went along, and once he got the peritoneal, because hemo was kind of hard on him, but once he transferred over to the peritoneal and his body started to regulate, then he was able to comprehend it more, and he started doing more to work on it, so it became that the only thing I would hook up, whenever he had his down days or just when he needed injections in his bags for one reason or another. But
So, Gary, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Jimmy. Can you share with us why you chose and what you saw? What do you see as some of the benefits of doing a home therapy?
well, I feel better. And I have control. I get to do my dialysis on my time. I work 40 hours a week, and I need to know when I'm doing dialysis. I need to be able to control it. And I think that has really been my best benefit, is just control.
Okay. Do you have any pets in your house?
We have a dog.
And how do you handle your pet when it's time to do your treatment?
Oh, the dog stays upstairs. Yeah, the dog doesn't come in my room.
now when he first started, we didn't. There was things we had to learn later on. So when we first started, when we did it 10 years ago, we had one under the impression we had to get rid of animals, and we did have animals so in order for him to come home, we did end up getting rid of 3 animals, so that he could do it, just to later find out we didn't have to. And so being on the home infinity group that I, also it was one of the things that we worked on one of the years that we is the myths, portion of it, because there were things that we were today, that we were under the impression like we had to get rid of the animals. You can't have little kids around. Your house has to be immaculate. So there was things that we were under the impression of, to later find that that's not the way it was. So, but yeah, now we do have a dog. He just doesn't wander around. He just doesn't come downstairs. He is always
Yeah.
upstairs. But we did have, when he first got sick, we had 3 ferrets, 4 dogs, and one of them being a Rottweiler wolf. So it was a big 100-pound dog. The only thing we ended up keeping out of those animals was a 20-year-old cat, because she was too old to, give away. But after a while, then we found out that no, you can have your animals, and so we do have a dog now.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I'm just, again, looking at the time. I do want to, gosh, this has been great. And thank you, because, there are so many myths out there. I'm glad that you shared about the pets and some of the other, again, myths that you talked about, because that still comes up. We still hear that's a barrier sometimes for patients to go, they think is a reason that they can't go home and do a home therapy. So thank you for sharing that. There is some things that have been coming into the chat. Jerome, I don't know if you, we do want to spend a few little minutes here at the end for questions. And I know there were a lot of comments about, thank you for sharing these stories. They're wonderful. I think a couple of them we might have answered along the way, but, a lot of good comments. Just, this is so incredible, so inspiring. To everybody, amazing teamwork it is. So, Jerome, was there some, I know there were some questions there.
Yeah, there's a few questions that came into the chat. One of them was, do you warm the dialysate before using, or does temperature matter? And Don or Yolanda, Jimmy, Gary.
Temperature matters completely.
Temperature matters. Yes,
Yes.
it does.
Yeah, you don't want to get hypothermia. So yeah, you definitely want your dialysate warm.
And
But the machine is the what, but in our case, the machine warms it. Once you hook the bags up, as it goes through, there's a heater in the machine that heats the stuff up. It's not like like when he first started and was doing manuals, we had to use heating pads to heat up the solution before he used it. But being on the cycler machine itself, the cycler machine heats the solution, so it's not going into you cold. But you don't want to put on cold fluid, because then you're going to be in pain.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for us, this unit here on top where this bag is sitting, that's the warmer. So this bag here is very warm, where these are still cool, but everything goes through this bag before it reaches Jimmy.
Yeah, and his is in the center, back behind that monitor.
Yep.
We had a question earlier, and I believe it was for Don and Jimmy. How often do you receive supplies?
So when we're at home, we receive supplies once a month. But when we're on the road, we pick them up every 2 weeks.
Okay.
And, even with Jimmy doing dialysis 7 days a week, we still only get about 12 boxes for the whole month.
Yeah.
That's nice.
How big are those boxes?
They're not very big. I mean, the thing is at home we use the Pure Flow, and that'll make a 60-liter bag of dialysate, which is good for 2 treatments.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's doing home hemo. And so, we don't have nearly the boxes you guys do, Yolanda. But when we travel 2 weeks is about 32 boxes, but they're still not very big. And they don't weigh as much as yours do.
Another question that came in for Gary, What is your peritoneal dialysis treatment time?
It is 11 hours. And it's 11 hours, and I can easily disconnect during dwelling. So I can disconnect and do whatever I want to do and then reconnect before the machine starts the cycle again. So there's a lot of time in between the session that I can get things done if I need to.
There is a question, but I'm not sure what it's asking. So Stephanie, I'm going to have you help me. Do you have to do any day add-on yet for PD?
No.
Any extra treatments, but you already
No.
you do treatments 7 days a week already, Gary, don't you?
Yes, I do.
So that was a question, some who do not do PD every day, could add on, but that was the question. If do you ever have to add an extra treatment for your PD?
Now, the only difference is that like with Don and Jim, when we traveled, like we drove because we're in Alaska. So like we drove from Alaska to Florida. And so so he did at some points he did manuals. And so he did it throughout the day. So because it wasn't about hooking to a machine because he had to do it himself. So in that case, yeah, we did treatments throughout the day. He did treatments throughout the day. He did like 4 exchanges where he had to hook up and the solution go in and drain out, and he did that a few times. When we did that, when we did a cruise. Well, we found that the cyclers don't balance well on the cruise ships. So even though we took the cycler on the cruise ship, he still ended up having to do manuals, and so that ended up being where he had to do it throughout the day. But when you're steady at home or just by your, then no, you don't have to do it during the day. But if you're doing manuals, yes, you do have to do it throughout the day. So every now and then, if we're traveling or something, yeah, he has to do ones during the day.
But I still emphasize you get to pick when you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that control. You have control
control
over your life and over your treatments that you do not get when you are in center.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. Because like our thing, like if we've had in our thing, his motto is he teaches dialysis to live with him, not him living with kidney disease. So he's not living with kidney disease. He's making kidney disease live with him. So working it on his time and his schedule, not the other way around.
We have a question in the chat. I believe it's from a provider. How would you present home hemodialysis to an inpatient or outpatient patient? Like, what advice would you give the providers on today's call about how to approach patients about going to a home treatment?
Number one, what I am a huge advocate for experience the difference. So if you can, if this is an inpatient patient, if you can have a home machine in your center that they can just try it out for 3 days to feel the difference, that is a huge seller. That's what got my husband home. Yes, everybody has the fear of needles and blood pressure bottoming out and what if you bleed out? What if this? All the what ifs. But when you go and you start to just starting with feeling better, that first treatment, Jimmy felt better that very first treatment, trying dialysis on this little machine. Okay.
That was amazing.
Also, having someone who's doing it come in for your education when you're talking to inpatient or outpatient people who are getting ready to come into this world, because once you're in this world, you're in it forever. You are. And so what do we concentrate on? We concentrate on quality of life, because we want all of our patients to have the best quality of life they can possibly have, and whatever it's going to take, and understanding their fears and meeting them where they're at. And not everybody wants to do home hemo. Some people need to start out at PD, and it's forever changing, forever. You know, they have to move around. They have to change it up because this isn't working anymore, so they go to this. That's the life of dialysis.
Yeah, and like in our case, you can't try it out because it's PD. Peritoneal, there is no blood exchange. It's it's a there's no needles there's no needles involved or anything like that. So I think the best thing a doctor could do when it comes to trying to explaining that, which is one of the things I'm always talking about, which is have the best way to get a patient to understand and to see what's going on is to have another patient there, because a doctor, they can promote it, they do the surgeries, they do this, they do that, but the thing is they're not a patient. They don't know what it feels like. They don't know what the patient actually goes through or any of that. So the best way that I feel the best way to present to another patient when you're trying to convince them to do that or to explain it to them is to have someone that actually does it there to talk to them, because you as the doctor or the nurse, you can't really tell them what to expect. I mean, you can tell them what your book says you're supposed to expect, but everyone is not textbook, and you can't tell them, oh, well, you're going to feel like you got a full stomach or you're bloated, because you know what? You don't have that fluid in you. You've never had that fluid in you. The best person that can explain that to a patient that you're trying to get to go onto the system is to have another patient that's actively doing it, that has done it, that can tell them what they're going to sense, because that person can tell them where you can't. And I think that's because that's what we've done, where we've had people that said, well, I've talked to the doctor and they kind of explain it this way. And it's like, okay, you know what, here, let me let you talk to Gary so he can tell you what he's experiencing, because the doctor can't tell you, oh, well, this fluid's going to feel like you're warm and this and that, because only thing they know is you're putting the fluid in. They know it's supposed to be warm, but is it hot? Is it really warm? No one can tell them that but him.
Absolutely.
So I think the best thing to do is to talk to a patient that's actually doing it. So I think it's that patient connection that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
I totally agree, Yolanda. And on top of that, the thing is that I know for Jimmy, when he started dialysis, he crashed in and he was in center and there was no talk of anything else. He was handed pamphlets. It's like he wasn't told that there was anything else. Okay. So, we need to empower these patients. Okay. We need to let them know all of their modality choices and let them know that, you know what? Unfortunately, I mean, I think PD is a great option. I do. And I think it works great for a lot of people. But, we have to be honest that for some people, not all, but for some people, it has a shelf life. And so, I mean, I know somebody who's been on it for 10 years and they're doing fabulous. But I know somebody who was on it for less than a year and had nothing but issues. And it just goes to show you that everybody is different. Okay. Everybody's
Thank you, Dawn. Yeah, well, we need to wrap up here. Sorry to cut the conversation.
That's
short.
all right.
Definitely, I know that's fine. I just really want to thank, Gary and Yolanda, Jimmy and Dawn for sharing your story with us today, allowing us to take a peek into your house and your lives. And this was very, very good, important that we did this today. I think it really went well. Something new we tried this year. I think it was awesome. Got a lot of good comments in the chat, and everybody appreciated you sharing with us.